The water around Lyra shimmered with fear. Her transparent body pulsed with the blue-green light that meant worry among her people. She floated in the great council chamber of Narration Prime, watching the holographic display that showed their dying world. Their sun had started its final dance. Scientists called it a stellar instability phase, but Lyra knew it simply meant death. The star that had given life to Narration Prime for billions of years now sent waves of deadly radiation that boiled their oceans and killed their coral cities. The temperature has risen another 2 degrees this week, reported Elder Voss, his ancient form barely holding its shape in the heated water. Our deep-sea refuges can protect us for maybe 6 more months. 6 months. 8 billion Cathara had 6 months to live unless someone helped them leave their world. Lyra touched the communication device with one of her flowing tentacles. The device was made from living coral that could send messages across the galaxy. It was beautiful technology that combined nature and science in ways other species envied. But beauty could not save them now. Send the message again, Lyra whispered to the coral device. Someone must answer. The device pulsed once and sent their plea into space. It was the same message they had been sending for 3 months. A simple request for help. They needed ships to carry them away from their dying world. They needed temporary homes while they found a new planet. They needed other species to care. The first response came from the Korthak Empire. Lyra read it with growing despair. The Korthak Council has reviewed your request. We regret to inform you that we cannot provide assistance. Our ships are not equipped for aquatic species transport. The cost of modification would be substantial. We wish you well in your search for alternative solutions. Alternative solutions. As if the Cathara had not already tried everything they could think of. The next message came from the Stellarix Federation. It was shorter and colder. Request denied. The Stellarix Federation cannot spare resources for evacuation missions. Your pacifist philosophy makes you unsuitable as future allies. We recommend you seek help elsewhere. One by one, the responses came in. The Valdari Consortium said the Kithara offered no trade value. The Zephyrian Alliance claimed their ships were needed for border defense. The mechanized world stated that organic species were incompatible with their systems. Each rejection felt like a wave of ice water flowing through Lyra's body. She had spent her whole life believing that intelligence and kindness existed throughout the galaxy. The Cathara had shared their biotechnology freely with any species that asked. They had never started wars or claimed territory that belonged to others. They had been good neighbors to the galaxy, but being good neighbors did not matter when you needed help. Elder Nyx floated beside Lyra, her bioluminescent patterns dim with sadness. Perhaps we ask for too much, she said. We need special ships with water systems. We need food that our bodies can process. We need homes that can support aquatic life. We need to live, Lyra replied firmly. That is not too much to ask. The final message came from the Galactic Council itself. Lyra's body went completely transparent as she read it. When Cathara were shocked or afraid, they became almost invisible. After careful review of all factors, the Galactic Council has determined that evacuation of Narration Prime is not feasible. The specialized requirements of the Cathara species, combined with their limited strategic value, make large-scale rescue operations economically and logistically impossible. The Council officially designates Narration Prime as a Category 5 humanitarian loss. All member species are advised that no further resources should be allocated to this situation. The Council offers its sympathy to the Cathara people during this difficult time. Category 5 humanitarian loss. The clinical words meant 8 billion. Lives were not worth saving. Lyra felt her bioluminescent organs pulsing with rage. Around the chamber, other Kithara glowed bright red with anger. It was the first time in their recorded history that so many of their people had shown this emotion at once. They speak of strategic value, said Elder Voss, his voice carrying across the water like a growl, as if the worth of a species should be measured in weapons and territory. Our biotechnology has healed millions of beings across the galaxy, added Elder Nyx. Our living computers have solved problems that mechanical minds could not. Our organic ships heal themselves and grow stronger over time. None of that matters to them, Lyra said quietly. We are not warriors. We do not conquer planets or build massive fleets. We are weak in their eyes. But even as she spoke, Lyra refused to accept defeat. The other species had abandoned them, but she would not abandon her people. She swam to the communication device and began composing a new message. "What are you doing?" asked Elder Voss. "Sending our plea to every species in the database," Lyra replied. "Even the smallest civilizations. Even the newest members of Galactic Society. Someone out there must have compassion." Elder Nix's patterns flickered with doubt. "The Council has spoken. No one will risk going against their decision. Then we will die trying to live," Lyra said. "That is better than dying without hope." She programmed the device to send their message to all species, not just the major powers. The list included hundreds of civilizations, from ancient star-spanning empires to young species that had just learned to travel between worlds. As the messages went out, Lyra floated in the increasingly warm water and thought about her daughter. Coral, the young Kithara, was in the deep refuges with others of her generation. They were the future of their species, if their species had a future at all. Above them, the unstable star pulsed with deadly light. Below them, the thermal vents that had once given life to their world now boiled with dangerous heat. Their beautiful coral cities were bleaching white as the organisms died. Their vast libraries of genetic knowledge were failing as the data-storing creatures succumbed to the rising temperatures. The Kithara had spent millions of years building a civilization based on cooperation with nature. They had created art from living light, music from the songs of sea creatures, and architecture from guided coral growth. They had never harmed another species or taken resources by force, and now they would die because other species found them too expensive to save. Lyra's body pulsed with determination. She would keep sending messages until the last communication device failed. She would keep believing that somewhere in the vast galaxy, someone possessed the compassion that the great powers lacked. The coral device beside her began to glow. A new message was coming in. Lyra prepared herself for another rejection, another excuse, another explanation of why 8 billion lives were not worth the effort. But as she read the message, her body began to glow with hope for the first time in months. The message came from a species she had barely heard of, a young civilization that had only recently joined Galactic Society, a species called Humanity, and they had said yes. Captain Sarah Chen stared at the message on her screen for the third time. The translation was clear, but the content was hard to believe. An entire species was dying, and no one in the galaxy was willing to help them. "Computer, verify the source of this transmission," she said to the ship's artificial intelligence. "Source verified, Captain. The message originates from Narration Prime in the Kithara system. Signal strength indicates transmission from official government channels." Sarah rubbed her tired eyes. She had been captain of the exploration vessel Aurora's Promise for 5 years, leading humanity's efforts to map unknown regions of space. Her crew of 200 was used to discovering new worlds and making first contact with alien species. They were not equipped for massive rescue operations. But the message from the Kithara was impossible to ignore. "Lieutenant Park, bring up everything we have on the Kithara species," Sarah ordered. Park's fingers danced across his console. "Data is limited, Captain. They're an aquatic species from Narration Prime. Population approximately 8 billion. Known for advanced biotechnology and peaceful nature. No military conflicts in recorded history. And their sun is dying? According to the message, yes. Stellar instability causing massive climate change. They have maybe 6 months before their world becomes uninhabitable." Sarah stood and walked to the main view screen. Outside, stars scattered across the darkness like distant diamonds. Somewhere among those stars, 8 billion intelligent beings were waiting to die, because no one cared enough to save them. "What about the Galactic Council?" she asked. "Surely they're coordinating rescue efforts." Park's expression darkened. "Actually, Captain, I'm reading reports that the Council has declared the situation impossible to resolve. They've officially written off the entire planet." "Written them off?" Sarah's voice rose in disbelief. "We're talking about 8 billion lives. The reports mention high costs and low strategic value," Park said quietly. "Apparently, the Kithara require specialized aquatic environments that most species consider too expensive to maintain." Sarah felt anger building in her chest. She had spent years in space meeting different alien species, and she had learned that the galaxy was full of politics and power games. But she had never encountered anything this cruel. "Ma'am," called Communications Officer Torres from across the bridge, "I'm receiving priority messages from Earth Command. Put them through." The screen filled with the image of Admiral Jackson, the head of Earth's Space Exploration Division. His weathered face looked grim. Captain Chen, we've been monitoring the situation in the Cathera system. Are you still in the nearby sector? Yes, Admiral. We're about 3 days' travel from Narration Prime. Good. We've received the same distress call you have, and we've been reviewing the Council's response. Washington is not happy with what we're seeing. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Earth's government rarely got involved in galactic politics. Humanity was still new to the interstellar community, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 50 years ago. They usually tried to avoid making waves with more established species. What are our orders, sir? Admiral Jackson leaned forward. The President has called an emergency session of the Global Assembly. Every nation on Earth has voted unanimously on this issue, Captain. Unanimously. That's never happened before in human history. What did they decide? We're going to save them. All of them. Sarah's mouth fell open. Sir, with respect, we're talking about 8 billion beings. The logistics alone would be impossible. We don't have ships equipped for aquatic species. We don't have the resources for an operation of this scale. I know it sounds crazy, Captain. The other species certainly think so. The Valdari ambassador called it typical human foolishness. The Stellarics said we'll bankrupt ourselves on a lost cause. Maybe they're right, Park whispered. But Sarah heard him. Admiral Jackson's expression hardened. Maybe they are, Captain. Maybe we are fools. But we're fools who can't stand by and watch 8 billion people die when we have the power to help. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. She understood what this meant. Humanity was about to attempt the largest rescue operation in galactic history, using resources they could barely afford, to save people they had never met. What do you need from us, Admiral? First, get to Narration Prime immediately. We need someone on the ground to coordinate with the Cathara government. Find out exactly what they need and how we can help them. Understood. Second, be prepared for a massive undertaking. Every ship in the human fleet is being mobilized. Military vessels, cargo ships, passenger liners, even private spacecraft. We're converting anything that can hold water into a refugee transport. Torres looked up from her station. Admiral, our ship isn't designed for aquatic life support. We have water recycling systems, but nothing that could sustain alien sea life. We're working on that, Jackson replied. The Cathera message included technical specifications for their life support needs. Our engineers are working around the clock to design portable systems we can install on our ships. How many ships are we talking about? Sarah asked. Every vessel we have, Captain. Military Command estimates we can mobilize about 15,000 ships of various sizes. It won't be enough to save everyone, but we'll save as many as we can. The bridge fell silent. Sarah's crew stared at the screen in amazement. 15,000 ships represented the majority of humanity's space fleet. They were committing everything they had to help strangers. Admiral, Sarah said slowly, the other species must think we've lost our minds. Jackson smiled grimly. Oh, they do. The Korthak ambassador said we're wasting resources on beings who can't contribute to galactic defense. The mechanized worlds called it an inefficient allocation of materials. The Council has advised us to reconsider. And our response? We told them to watch and learn what compassion looks like. Sarah felt pride swelling in her chest. This was why she loved being human. Other species talked about logic and efficiency and strategic value. Humans talked about right and wrong. We'll have some challenges, Captain, the Admiral continued. The Cathera communicate through bioluminescent patterns and biochemical signals. We'll need to learn their language quickly. Their technology is completely biological, so our engineers will need to work closely with their scientists. What about the time factor? Park asked. 6 months to evacuate 8 billion beings? We'll make it work, Jackson said firmly. Failure is not an option. The transmission ended, leaving Sarah's bridge in stunned silence. She looked around at her crew. These were good people who had signed up to explore the unknown, not to risk their lives saving aliens that the rest of the galaxy had abandoned. Well, people, she said finally, you heard the orders. Set course for Narration Prime, maximum speed. Captain, said Park hesitantly, are we really going to do this? Risk everything for people we've never met? Sarah thought about the message from Lyra, the Cathera who had sent their desperate plea across the galaxy. She thought about 8 billion beings watching their world die while others counted the cost of helping them. Yes, Lieutenant, we're going to do this because it's right, because someone needs to show the galaxy that intelligence without compassion is worthless, and because if we were dying on a distant world, I'd want someone to care enough to help us. The ship hummed around them as the engines engaged. Behind them, Earth was mobilizing for the greatest rescue mission in human history. Ahead of them, Narration Prime waited with its dying oceans and desperate people. Sarah stood on the bridge of her small exploration ship and knew that humanity was about to change the galaxy forever, not through conquest or technology or political power, but through the simple act of caring about others. The other species would call them fools. History would decide if they were right. The first human ships arrived at Narration Prime just as another thermal storm hit the planet's surface. Captain Sarah Chen watched through the viewscreen as lightning crackled across boiling seas, while her translation team worked frantically to establish communication with the Kithra. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the surface," reported Torres. "It's using the same bioluminescent pattern they described in their message. Put it through the translator." The screen filled with swirling patterns of blue and green light. Slowly, words formed as the ship's computer decoded the alien language. "Human vessels, this is Lyra of the Kithara Council. We are amazed that you have come. We did not dare to hope." Sarah activated the response system. "Lyra, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Aurora's Promise. We're here to help. How much time do we have?" The light pattern shifted to darker colors. "Our scientists estimate 4 months before the deep refugees fail. Maybe less if more thermal storms occur. 4 months to evacuate 8 billion beings." Sarah felt the weight of the impossible task settling on her shoulders. "We're going to need your help to make this work," she said. "Our ships aren't designed for aquatic life support. We understand. Our biotechnicians are prepared to work with your engineers. We have portable life support systems that can adapt to your vessels." Within hours, the first joint human Kithara engineering teams were working together in the Aurora's Promise cargo bay. Sarah watched in fascination as Kithara biotechnicians used living coral to create water filtration systems that could support their species in human ships. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the ship's chief engineer, stood next to a Kithara scientist named Reef. The alien looked like a graceful jellyfish made of living crystal, with tentacles that glowed softly as he worked. "This is incredible," Dr. Vasquez said, examining a coral structure that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. "It's not just filtering water. It's actually creating the specific minerals and nutrients your people need." Reef's body shifted to warmer colors, which the translator identified as pleasure. "Your metal ships are also fascinating. So rigid and permanent. We have never seen materials that do not grow or change. Can your life support systems adapt to our ship designs?" "Yes, but we will need to grow them inside your vessels. The coral needs time to establish itself and understand the new environment." Dr. Vasquez frowned. "How much time?" 3 days for a basic system. 7 days for optimal efficiency." Sarah felt her heart sink. At that rate, they could only convert a few dozen ships before the Kithara homeworld became uninhabitable. They needed a faster solution. "What if we standardized the process?" she asked. "Created template systems that could be installed quickly?" Reef's patterns brightened. "Yes. If we establish master colonies of coral in your larger ships, they can produce smaller systems for installation in other vessels." The work began immediately. Human engineers and Kithara biotechnicians labored side by side, combining alien biological science with human industrial efficiency. They turned cargo ships into floating oceans, converted passenger liners into aquatic habitats, and modified military vessels to carry refugees instead of weapons. But even as the rescue fleet grew, disturbing news came from Narration Prime's surface. "Captain," Torres called out during their 3rd day in orbit, "we're receiving reports of increased seismic activity. The thermal storms are getting worse." Lyra's image appeared on the screen, her usually graceful form trembling with stress. "Captain Chen, we may have less time than we thought. The thermal vents are destabilizing. Some of our deep cities have already been evacuated. How long do we have?" 2 months. Maybe 3 if we're lucky." Sarah closed her eyes and did the math. Even working at maximum efficiency, they could only save a fraction of the Kithara population. The rescue fleet numbered in the thousands now, but it wasn't enough. "We need more ships," she told Admiral Jackson during their daily communication. "We're sending everything we have, Captain. But civilian volunteers are starting to arrive on their own." "Volunteers?" "Private ship owners, commercial vessels, even tourist ships. They're retrofitting themselves and heading your way. Some of them aren't even properly equipped, but they're coming anyway." Sarah felt a surge of pride in her species. Across human space, Ordinary people were risking their lives and fortunes to help aliens they had never met. The rescue operations began in earnest during the 4th week. Human ships descended through Narration Prime's increasingly violent atmosphere to reach the Kethera cities. The work was dangerous and exhausting. Commander Rodriguez piloted a converted cargo ship through a lightning storm to reach the floating city of Deep Harmony. His ship's hull groaned under the pressure as he descended through layers of superheated water. "Approaching the city now," he reported, reading massive biosignatures. "There must be thousands of Kethera down here." Through his view screen, he could see an incredible sight. The Kethera city was made entirely of living coral that glowed with soft bioluminescence. Graceful spires twisted upward like underwater trees, connected by flowing bridges that pulsed with patterns of light. But the coral was dying. White patches of bleached material marked where the heat had killed the living structures. Parts of the city were already collapsing as their biological foundations failed. "Kethera vessels approaching," announced his communications officer. "They're guiding us to a docking area." The Kethera ships were unlike anything humans had ever seen. They looked like living creatures with hulls that rippled like fish skin and propulsion systems based on jet streams of water. They moved through the ocean with the grace of sea animals. The evacuation process was a carefully choreographed dance. Kethera families swam up from their dying city, carrying only essential possessions and their most precious genetic samples. Human crews worked in environmental suits to help transfer the refugees into the converted aquatic holds of their ships. Sarah watched the process from the Aurora's promise and felt her heart breaking. These were not just refugees. They were entire communities being torn away from homes their ancestors had built over millions of years. A young Kethera named Coral approached the loading area with her family. She carried a small container of glowing organisms that pulsed with recorded memories of her people's history. "Will we ever see our home again?" she asked Sarah through the translator. Sarah knelt down to the child's level, her environmental suit making the movement awkward. "I don't know," she said honestly. "But you'll survive. Your people will continue, and someday you'll build new homes that are just as beautiful." The rescue operations continued around the clock. Human ships worked in shifts, racing against time and increasingly violent weather. Some vessels were damaged by the storms. Others suffered equipment failures in the hostile environment. The merchant ship Bright Future lost its main engines during a thermal storm and had to be towed to safety with 3,000 Kethera refugees aboard. The military vessel Iron Will suffered a hull breach, but managed to complete its evacuation mission before limping back to the fleet. Not every mission succeeded. The passenger liner Ocean Dream was caught in a massive thermal explosion while trying to reach a remote Kethera settlement. All hands were lost, including 200 human crew members and the 1,000 Kethera they had been trying to save. "Captain," Torres said quietly after they received the news about Ocean Dream, "some of the civilian ships are asking if they should continue. They're scared." Sarah looked out at the rescue fleet. Thousands of ships from across human space risking everything to save strangers. Some of them were indeed turning back, unwilling to face the growing dangers. But for every ship that left, 2 more arrived. The volunteer fleet kept growing as more humans heard about the mission and decided to help. "Tell the fleet that anyone who wants to leave can do so with honor," Sarah said. "But also tell them that 8 billion lives are counting on us, and that history will remember what we do here." As the weeks passed, the operation became a race against catastrophe. Narration Prime's sun grew more unstable each day, sending waves of deadly radiation across the planet's surface. The ocean temperatures rose so high that even the deepest refuges began to fail. But the humans kept coming. Ship after ship descended through the burning atmosphere to rescue communities of Kethera from their dying world. Engineers worked impossible hours to modify vessels. Medical teams learned to treat alien physiologies. Translators decoded the complex language of bioluminescent patterns. And slowly, against all odds, the impossible began to seem merely difficult. "Current evacuation count stands at 6.2 billion, reported Lieutenant Park during a status briefing. "We're actually ahead of schedule." Sarah could hardly believe it. When they had started, saving even half the Kethera population had seemed impossible. Now they were close to evacuating everyone. What about the remaining settlements? Mostly deep ocean communities in the most dangerous areas, but volunteer crews are still going down to get them. Sarah nodded and returned to watching the rescue operations. Through her view screen, she could see human ships rising from the boiling seas of Narration Prime, their holds full of grateful refugees. The galaxy had said this was impossible. The great powers had declared 8 billion lives not worth saving. Humanity was proving them wrong, one ship at a time. 3 months after the evacuation of Narration Prime, Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of New Harmony Station, watching something that defied belief. Before her eyes, a Kythera city was growing in the depths of Earth's Pacific Ocean. The structure looked like a vast underwater garden made of living light. Coral spires twisted upward from the ocean floor, pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that told stories in the Kythera language. Schools of Earth fish swam between the alien architecture, somehow perfectly at home among the foreign structures. "It's beautiful," whispered Dr. Elena Vasquez, who stood beside Sarah at the viewing window. "It's more than that," Sarah replied. "It's impossible. 3 months ago, the ocean floor here was empty sand. Now look at it." Below them, Kythera families swam through their new home. Their graceful forms glowed with contentment as they tended gardens of sea plants that had never existed on Earth before. Children played among coral formations that cleaned the water and generated oxygen more efficiently than any human technology. The environmental impact reports came in this morning. Dr. Vasquez said, "The Kythera settlements are actually improving our oceans. Water purity is up 40% in areas where they've established communities." Sarah nodded. It was one of many surprises that had emerged from humanity's decision to save the Kythera. What had started as a massive expense was becoming the most beneficial partnership in human history. "Captain Chen," called a voice behind them. Sarah turned to see Lyra approaching, her transparent form gliding through the station's water-filled corridors. The Kythera had adapted their architecture to allow both species to move freely through shared spaces. "Lyra, good to see you. How are the settlements adapting?" Lyra's bioluminescent pattern shifted to warm gold, indicating happiness. "Better than we dared hope. Your oceans are rich with life we can work with. The coral responds well to Earth's minerals. And your people? Are they adjusting to being refugees?" The patterns dimmed slightly. "It is difficult. Many grieve for our lost world, but the young ones like Coral are already calling this place home." Sarah had met Coral several times since the evacuation. The young Kythera had thrown herself into learning about Earth's marine life with enthusiasm that amazed human scientists. "She's been working with our marine biologists," Dr. Vasquez said. "Yesterday she created a hybrid kelp that grows 3 times faster than normal and produces twice as much oxygen." "Your daughter has a gift," Sarah told Lyra. "All our young do. It is how we survived on Narration Prime for so long. We adapt, we learn, we create new solutions." Dr. Vasquez pulled out a tablet displaying complex biological data. "Speaking of solutions, we've been analyzing the medical applications of Kythera biotechnology. The results are extraordinary." Sarah looked at the data with growing amazement. The Kythera's living medicines were curing diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries. Their organic computers were solving environmental problems that mechanical systems couldn't handle. Their symbiotic agricultural techniques were revolutionizing food production. The cancer treatment centers are reporting 95% success rates using Kythera bioremediation therapy, Dr. Vasquez continued. "And the new hybrid crops are producing twice the yield while using half the water." "It's not just medicine and agriculture," Lyra added. "Your engineers have been learning from our living ships. The new hybrid vessels are faster and more efficient than either of our technologies alone." Sarah had seen the new ships being built in orbit above Earth. They combined human industrial techniques with Kythera biological engineering, creating vessels that could repair themselves and adapt to changing conditions. "The Stellar Engineering Corps is calling them living starships," Dr. Vasquez said. "They grow stronger over time instead of wearing out." But the partnership went beyond technology. Sarah had watched as Kythera philosophy began to influence human culture. Their patient, long-term thinking was helping humanity approach problems with greater wisdom. "Tell me about the meditation centers," Sarah said to Lyra. Lyra's patterns brightened. "Ah, yes. Many humans are learning our contemplative techniques. Your species thinks quickly and acts decisively, which is valuable, but sometimes quick action without deep thought leads to problems." Sarah knew she was right. Humanity's tendency to rush into situations had served them well during the rescue mission. but it had also caused difficulties in other areas of galactic politics. The Kythera teach us to pause and consider, Dr. Vasquez said, to think about consequences 7 generations in the future, not just immediate results. And humans teach us courage and determination, Lyra replied. Your willingness to attempt the impossible inspires us to try things we would never have considered. Sarah walked to another viewing window that showed the orbital shipyards. Human and Kythera workers labored together, creating vessels that incorporated the best of both species' capabilities. Have you heard from the Galactic Council lately? Sarah asked. Lyra's patterns shifted to darker colors. They are concerned about our partnership. Some species worry that humans and Kythera working together might upset the balance of power. Sarah wasn't surprised. The rescue of the Kythera had changed humanity's status in galactic society almost overnight. Other species were taking notice of Earth's expanding influence and technological capabilities. The Valdari have been asking pointed questions about our new ship designs, Dr. Vasquez said. They want to know how vessels that used to take years to build are now growing to completion in months. And the Stellarics have noticed that human colonies are becoming more prosperous, Sarah added. They're wondering how we're achieving such rapid development. Let them wonder, Lyra said firmly. We owe them nothing. When our people faced extinction, they counted the cost and found us wanting. Only humanity showed compassion. Sarah thought about the early days of the rescue mission, when other species had mocked humanity's foolish sentiment. Now those same species were watching, nervously as the Human-Kythera alliance grew stronger each day. We've received formal requests for technology sharing. From 12 different species, Dr. Vasquez reported. They all want access to our biotech advances. What did we tell them? The same thing they told us when we asked for help with the evacuation. We're too busy with our own affairs to spare resources for others. Sarah felt a grim satisfaction at the irony. The species that had refused to help save the Kythera were now begging for the benefits of that same partnership. Captain, Lyra said suddenly, her patterns shifting to urgent orange. I must tell you something important. Our deep space observation posts have detected something troubling. What kind of something? Ancient automated systems awakening in the galactic core. Defense networks that have been dormant for millions of years. Our biotechnology can interface with organic components, but these systems appear to be based on hybrid biomechanical designs. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Are they hostile? Unknown. But if they become active, they could threaten every inhabited world in the galaxy. The energy signatures suggest weapons of enormous power. Dr. Vasquez pulled up star charts on her tablet. If what you're describing is accurate, we could be looking at a galaxy-wide catastrophe. The other species don't know about this yet, Lyra said. Our observation posts are more sensitive than most, because they use living sensors that can detect biological components in the ancient systems. Sarah realized what this meant. The same biotechnology that the galaxy had dismissed as worthless might be the key to surviving whatever was coming. How long before these systems become fully active? She asked. Our scientists estimate 18 months to 2 years, maybe less if something triggers them. Sarah looked out at the thriving Kythera city in Earth's ocean and the hybrid ships being built in orbit. The rescue of the Kythera had been motivated by compassion, but it might turn out to be the key to survival. We need to accelerate our research, she said. If ancient biomechanical systems are waking up, we'll need every advantage we can get. Agreed, Lyra said. And Captain? Thank you. Not just for saving our people, but for showing us that 2 species can be stronger together than either could be alone. Sarah smiled as she watched human and Kythera children playing together in the underwater city. What had started as a desperate rescue mission was becoming something greater. 2 species learning from each other, growing together, facing an uncertain future with combined strength. The galaxy had abandoned the Kythera as worthless. Humanity had chosen compassion over calculation. Soon the galaxy would learn which choice had been wiser. The first ancient defense platform activated without warning, emerging from the depths of space near the Korthak homeworld like a nightmare made of metal and bone. Captain Sarah Chen watched the emergency broadcast from the bridge of the newly commissioned USS Symbiosis, the first fully biomechanical hybrid warship created by Human-Kythera cooperation. The platform is enormous, reported Lieutenant Park, studying the sensor readings. 12 kilometers long, and it's showing both mechanical and organic components exactly as the Kythera predicted. On the view screen, the ancient structure looked like a fusion of starship and sea creature. Metallic armor plating covered what appeared to be living tissue, while tentacle-like appendages writhed with deadly purpose. Energy signatures indicated weapons that could sterilize entire star systems. "Captain," called Communications Officer Torres, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Council. They're requesting immediate assistance from all member species." Sarah almost smiled at the irony. The same council that had declared the Kythera rescue impossible was now begging for help from the alliance they had mocked. "Put them through." The screen filled with the panicked face of Council Chairman Vex, a Stellarix whose usual composure had cracked completely. "Captain Chen, we need your biomechanical ships immediately. The platform has already destroyed 3 Korthak defense fleets. Our conventional weapons are useless against its adaptive shielding." "What makes you think our ships will be more effective?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. "Your hybrid technology. The living components might be able to interface with the platform's organic systems. Please, we're looking at a galaxy-wide catastrophe if more platforms activate." Sarah turned to Lyra, who floated in the water-filled command section beside her station. The Kythera's bioluminescent patterns showed deep concern. "How many more platforms are out there?" Sarah asked. Chairman Vex's expression darkened. "Our deep space sensors have detected at least 30 similar signatures across the galaxy. They're all beginning to show signs of activation. 30 platforms, each one capable of destroying entire civilizations." Sarah felt the weight of 8 billion rescued Kythera lives and the billions more beings throughout the galaxy, who now depended on the Alliance for survival. "We'll help," she said simply, "but we'll do this our way." "Thank you, Captain. What do you need from us?" "Nothing. You've already given us your answer when we needed help. Now watch how it's done." The transmission ended, leaving Sarah's bridge in tense silence. Around them, the hybrid ship hummed with living energy as Kythera biosystems worked in harmony with human engineering. "Captain," Lyra said, her patterns shifting to determined blue-green, "I've been in contact with our deep space observation posts. We've identified the activation sequence for the ancient network. Can we stop it?" "Not stop it, but we might be able to communicate with it. The platforms appear to be controlled by a central intelligence that's been dormant for millions of years. Something has awakened it." Dr. Elena Vasquez, now serving as the ship's chief biosystems engineer, looked up from her station. "The energy patterns suggest the intelligence is partially biological. If we can establish contact through biomechanical interface, we might be able to reason with it," Sarah finished. "Or at least understand what it wants." The USS Symbiosis and her sister ships moved through space unlike any vessels the galaxy had ever seen. Their living hulls rippled with bioluminescent patterns while their hybrid engines produced both mechanical thrust and organic propulsion streams. The ships themselves were learning and adapting as they traveled. "Approaching the Korthak system now," reported Park. "Reading massive energy discharge from the ancient platform." Through the view screen, Sarah could see the aftermath of the battle. Debris from Korthak warships drifted through space while the ancient platform hung motionless, its organic components pulsing with satisfied energy. "It's feeding," Lyra observed, her patterns brightening with sudden understanding. "The platform isn't just destroying ships, it's consuming their energy and materials to strengthen itself." "A self-repairing weapon system," Dr. Vasquez said grimly. "It gets stronger with every enemy it defeats." Sarah activated the ship's biomechanical communication array, a hybrid system that could transmit both electronic signals and organic chemical messages. "Ancient Guardian, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Human Kythera Alliance. We wish to communicate." For long moments nothing happened. Then the platform's organic components began pulsing in complex patterns that their hybrid translation system struggled to decode. "It's responding," Torres said excitedly. "The translation is fragmentary, but it's definitely intelligent communication." Slowly, words formed on their screens. "Young species. Organic and mechanical harmony impossible. How do you exist?" Sarah felt a thrill of hope. The ancient intelligence was surprised by their hybrid nature, which might give them an advantage. "We are 2 species working together," Sarah transmitted. "Biological Kythera and mechanical humans, united by mutual respect and cooperation." The platform's patterns shifted to what looked like confusion. "Cooperation. not conquered, not enslaved. Choose to work together? Yes, we help each other because we care about each other's survival. A long pause. Then, this was the purpose, the great experiment. Biological and mechanical symbiosis. Thought lost forever? Sarah exchanged glances with Lyra. The ancient defense network wasn't a weapon system at all. It was something far more complex. Tell us about the experiment, Sarah transmitted. The response came faster now, as if the ancient intelligence was eager to share its story. Creators sought perfection, biological adaptability with mechanical precision, created hybrid species throughout galaxy. Then came the purge. Organic and mechanical turned against each other. War destroyed experiment. Guardians activated to preserve hope. Understanding flooded through Sarah's mind. The ancient platforms weren't weapons of destruction. They were preservation systems, waiting for organic and mechanical species to achieve cooperation again. The Korthak ships you destroyed, Sarah transmitted. They were purely mechanical. Yes, old pattern. Mechanical dominance over organic. Must be cleansed. Cycle must not repeat. But we are different, human and Cathara working together. Proof of possibility. But are you unique? Or can others learn? Sarah realized this was a test. The ancient intelligence would judge the entire galaxy based on how organic and mechanical species responded to the current crisis. Give us a chance to show you, she transmitted. Let us prove that cooperation is possible on a galactic scale. How will you prove this? Young Alliance? Sarah thought quickly. The galaxy was full of species that had rejected cooperation in favor of competition and dominance. But the current crisis might change their perspective. We will save them all, she said. Even the species that abandoned us when we needed help. We will show them that working together is stronger than working alone. The ancient intelligence seemed to consider this. Around them, more platforms were activating throughout the galaxy, threatening every major civilization. You have 7 planetary rotations, the intelligence finally transmitted. Show me cooperation between organic and mechanical across the galaxy, or the cleansing will continue. 7 days to unite the galaxy. Sarah felt the impossibility of the task, but then she remembered the evacuation of Narration Prime. Everyone had said that was impossible too. We accept, she transmitted. The next 7 days became a frantic race across the galaxy. The USS Symbiosis and her sister ships traveled from system to system, demonstrating hybrid technology and teaching other species how to work together. The proud Valdari learned to integrate organic computers into their trade networks. The militant Stellarics discovered that biomechanical armor was superior to their purely mechanical systems. The isolated mechanized worlds found that organic components made their machines more efficient and adaptable. Each species they visited initially resisted cooperation. The Korthak claimed that mixing organic and mechanical elements was inefficient. The Zephyrians argued that their pure energy beings couldn't work with physical matter. But as more ancient platforms activated and threatened their homeworlds, desperation overcame prejudice. Species that had maintained isolation for millennia suddenly found themselves working together to survive. Sarah watched from the bridge of the symbiosis as former enemies shared technology and knowledge. Korthak engineers worked alongside Zephyrian energy shapers to create new defensive systems. Valdari traders collaborated with mechanized world factories to produce hybrid components. It's working, Lyra said, her patterns bright with amazement. The galaxy is learning to cooperate. On the 7th day, representatives from every major species gathered in the neutral space near Earth's solar system. The ancient intelligence had been watching, measuring their progress through sensors on the Guardian platforms. Sarah stood before the assembled fleet of hybrid vessels, each one representing a different species but all incorporating both organic and mechanical elements. The sight was magnificent and unprecedented. Ancient Guardian, she transmitted, behold the galaxy united in cooperation. The response came immediately. Extraordinary. In 7 rotations you have achieved what took our creators millennia.